The fraction of an inch. Every officer who has ever been in a gunfight will tell you some version of the same thing, and it is not what television prepares you for. They do not tell you about the heroism or the training or the slow-motion clarity that the movies promise. They tell you about how fast it was. They tell you that the entire thing, the draw, the shots fired, the retreat, the cover, the radio call, happened before their brain had fully registered that it had started. They tell you about the fraction of an inch. A bullet that traveled through a car windshield and struck a vest instead of chest. A gun with a 30-round extended magazine that fired at 2 officers at point-blank range and hit neither of them. A body cam mounted in the center of a chest that was in the exact position to intercept a round fired from 6 feet away. A 22-year-old who was shot in the leg, called for backup while returning fire, flagged down civilian drivers for help, and made it home. Today's episode is about 4 fractions of an inch. 4 encounters where the gap between what happened and what could have happened is so small that every officer involved has spent time thinking about it since. The 4 cases in today's episode span 2 years and 4 states. They are different in almost every way. Different departments, different suspects, different contexts, different tactical situations. One happened at a residential apartment complex on a Tuesday morning when 2 officers on a robbery follow-up noticed a man trying to get into cars. One happened at 3 in the morning in a quiet suburb of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, when a responding officer drove toward an active shooting scene, and the shooter was still there. One happened on a 2-lane road in East Tennessee at 8 in the evening when a routine traffic stop for swerving escalated through a taser, a refusal, and a gun in under 2 minutes. And one happened on a residential street in Deltona, Florida, when a deputy and his 8-day-old rookie partner knocked on a door to ask about a minor property damage complaint, and the person on the other side had already decided what he was going to do when law enforcement showed up. In 3 of these 4 cases, every officer involved survived. In one of them, a partner survived while the other did not. All 4 cases have verified body camera or dash camera footage released by the agencies involved. All 4 have documented law enforcement statements, charging documents, and court proceedings. In the most recent case, one that happened just 12 days before this episode was recorded, a deputy is currently recovering at home, eating chicken, watching cartoons with his family, because a brand new model of body camera his department had switched to 6 months earlier happened to be mounted exactly in the center of his chest instead of on his shoulder, as the previous model had been. The round that was supposed to kill him hit the camera instead. These 4 cases are not stories about officers being lucky. They are stories about officers making decisions under fire at a speed that the human nervous system is barely designed to handle, and surviving those decisions, and the context around those decisions, by a margin that most people never have to experience. They are also, in 3 of the 4 cases, stories about what happened to the people who fired the weapons, the charges, the trials, the sentences, the manhunts, and the courtrooms that came after the body cam footage ended. And they are stories about what the officers who survived these encounters said and did in the seconds immediately after the shooting. Because what someone does with their body and their voice in the moments after they are shot is one of the most revealing things any body camera ever captures. Before we go into the first case, I want you to track one thing across all 4 situations today: the moment of decision. Every one of these encounters has a specific point where the officer had to make a choice: move or stay, cover or return fire, drive or stop, advance or retreat. And where that choice, made in a fraction of a second with limited information and no rehearsal for this exact situation, was a difference between what you are about to hear and something much worse. Track that moment in each case and tell me in the comments which decision you think was the hardest to make. 30 rounds at close range. 0 hits. Tampa, Florida, February 4th, 2025. Tuesday morning, February 4th, 2025. Just after 10 a.m. The Azure North Apartments at 4939 East Bush Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. Detective Amy Jones, 21 years with the Tampa Police Department, and Corporal Caitlin Ford, 9 years with the department, are at the complex to conduct a follow-up investigation on an unrelated robbery that occurred nearby. They are not in a high-alert tactical posture. They are in follow-up mode, the investigative work that happens after the initial response, the documentation and canvassing that builds a case. While in the parking lot of the complex, they observe a 23-year-old man named Matthew Fowler moving through the lot, sitting on a bicycle, attempting to get into vehicles and trying the handles of apartment doors. The observation is routine. Fowler is the kind of person you stop in a parking lot when you are already there. They approach him to get identification. What happens next, from the moment they reach him to the moment they are taking cover, takes less than 4 to 5 seconds. The body camera footage released the following day by the Tampa Police Department shows the approach. Jones and Ford are professional, direct, and measured as they make contact with Fowler on the sidewalk. He identifies himself. Then there's a struggle, fast, physical, compressed into a few seconds, and the body camera shows Fowler with a gun in his hand moments before the shot begins. He draws a Glock 9mm handgun equipped with an extended 30-round magazine. He fires at the officers. Detective Jones and Corporal Ford are both within a few feet of Fowler when the rounds go out. Ford returns fire. Fowler runs. The entire shooting is over. Neither officer was struck by a single round. Who Matthew Fowler was? Tampa Police Chief Lee Burcourt, speaking at a news conference on the day of the arrest, confirmed that Matthew Fowler was a convicted felon with an extensive and violent criminal record who had been released from prison approximately 1 year before the shooting. He was 23 years old, with a date of birth of September 11, 2001. He should not have had a gun. His prior conviction was violent, and his release from prison 12 months before the Ashland North parking lot placed him back into the community with a specific legal status that made possession of the Glock 9mm an additional felony charge on top of everything else he was facing after February 4th. The extended 30-round magazine he had attached to that Glock was a detail that Chief Burcourt specifically named at the press conference. The exchange of gunfire began when Fowler fired a 9mm handgun with an extended magazine that held 30 bullets. He had 30 rounds available. He used some of them in a parking lot at close range on 2 officers who had approached him to ask for identification. He hit neither of them. After firing, Fowler fled on foot across East Bush Boulevard and into the surrounding area. The Tampa Police Department established a perimeter immediately. Fowler was apprehended a short time later near the intersection of North 50th Street and Temple Heights Road, not far from where the shooting occurred. His Glock 9mm with the extended magazine was recovered from a nearby dumpster where he had disposed of it during the flight. This disposal, the act of throwing the weapon in a dumpster while running from the scene, became a charge of its own, tampering with physical evidence. Chief Burcourt confirmed that a second individual, a woman later identified as Lorchid, was subsequently charged with 7 counts of accessory after the fact to attempted murder, tampering with evidence related to a felony, and felony fleeing to elude. Reflecting assistance rendered to Fowler after the shooting that the investigation was able to document and charge. The charges and the response. Matthew Fowler was charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer, 2 counts of resisting an officer with violence, carrying concealed firearm, felon in possession of a weapon, tampering with physical evidence, and loitering or prowling. The attempted first-degree murder charges reflect that the standard for this specific offense, premeditated attempt to kill, is met when a person draws and fires a weapon directly at an officer in a situation where lethal intent can be established. Drawing a Glock with a 30-round magazine in a parking lot and firing it at 2 officers within a few feet in an established Florida court context meets that standard. Detective Jones and Corporal Ford were placed on administrative leave, which is standard department procedure in any officer-involved shooting, while the Florida Department of Law Enforcement conducted an independent investigation into the officer-involved shooting aspect of the incident. The TPD's investigation into the underlying robbery and into Fowler's other activities continued separately. Chief Burcourt, in a statement that spoke to what his officers had stepped into that morning without knowing it was there, said, "Every officer who wears a badge understands the inherent dangers of this profession, yet they selflessly answer the call to protect our community." These officers, already engaged in an active investigation, demonstrated their dedication by proactively addressing criminal activity. Their actions, which placed them directly in harm's way, undoubtedly contributed to the safety of our residents. We are incredibly grateful that our officers were not injured, and we are now focused on ensuring justice is served. The body camera footage, released publicly the following day as part of the department's standard transparency protocol, shows the full sequence: the approach, the identification attempt, the struggle, the gun, the shot, the return fire, the flight. What it cannot show, and what no body camera can show, is the interior calculation of either officer in the moment between noticing the gun and responding to it. 21 years and 9 years of combined law enforcement experience, compressed into the fraction of a second between recognizing a drawn weapon and reacting to it. Neither officer was hit. Fowler fired 30 rounds worth of capacity into a parking lot at close range, and none of them connected. The Bodycam recorded all of it. The dumpster where the gun went was a few blocks away. The charges are in the Hillsborough County court system. A 21-year veteran detective and a 9U corporal were doing robbery follow-up in an apartment parking lot. They saw a man trying to enter cars. They approached him for identification. He had a Glock with a 30-round magazine that he should not have been able to legally possess. He drew and fired it at close range. Neither officer was hit. He ran and threw the gun in a dumpster. He was out of prison for less than a year. The charges include 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Do you think a year in a Florida prison for a violent offense is enough time for something like this to happen? Tell me in the comments. 10 in the morning. A parking lot. A follow-up investigation on a robbery they did not commit. A man trying to enter cars on a bicycle. An identification request. A 30-round Glock at point-blank range. 2 female officers. 0 hits. Return fire. A perimeter. A dumpster with a gun in it. 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer. 1 year out of prison. 21 years and 9 years of service between them, and they are both going home because a gun with 30 rounds fired at close range did not connect with either one of them. Chief Bocor said he was incredibly grateful. He was right to be. He said he was hit. He kept going. Shorewood, Wisconsin, July 3rd, 2025. Early Thursday morning, July 3rd, 2025. Approximately 2:51 a.m. Shorewood, Wisconsin, a small, affluent suburb of Milwaukee, about 5 square miles, population 13,000, known for its quiet residential streets and proximity to Lake Michigan. The Shorewood Police Department is dispatched to the 4000 to 4200 block of North Bartlett Avenue following a 911 call from a landlord who reports that he has been shot while sleeping inside his own residence. He was struck in his chest and his hand. As he lay there, he could hear approximately 17 gunshots coming from the lower unit of the duplex where his tenant, a 34-year-old woman named Victoria Truss, lived. He watched out the window as a man he recognized as a shooter left in a black Mercedes sedan. One officer drives toward the address in his Shorewood patrol vehicle. He does not know that the man with the Mercedes has not left the immediate area yet. He drives onto Wood Street, near Bartlett, and then the shooting begins again. Michael Griffin, 34 years old, fires directly at the approaching squad car. At least 2 rounds strike the windshield. A third enters the passenger side of the vehicle. A fourth strikes the officer in his ballistic vest. On the body camera and dashboard camera footage released publicly by Shorewood Police in January 2026, more than 6 months after the incident, you can hear the officer's voice the moment the round hits his vest. He does not stop. He does not pull over. He keeps driving. What he says on the radio, on camera, with a round in his vest and glass from the windshield in his face and another officer's blood pressure worth of adrenaline running through him, is this: shots fired. Shots fired. I'm hit. And then, almost immediately, his still shooting. His at Wood, at that original address. Victoria Truss. Victoria Truss was 34 years old. She was a mother. She was the oldest of 3 siblings. She had, according to court records and search warrant documents obtained by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, called the Shorewood Police Department approximately 7 weeks before her death on May 11, 2025, and reported that Michael Griffin had a gun and would not leave her residence. That call was classified and handled as a disorderly conduct complaint. It did not result in Griffin's arrest or in any documented legal consequence that prevented him from returning. Family members and friends, speaking to reporters in the days after her death, described Truss as a victim of domestic violence who had been trying to separate herself from Griffin. They said she was the oldest of 3 siblings and the mother of a 14-year-old son. A GoFundMe was established to cover her funeral costs. Her mother, Trina Freeland, said to reporters, "Just be here for us, please." Griffin's history with Milwaukee County prosecutors was a pattern that the Journal-Sentinel documented in detail in the days after the shooting. In November 2013, Milwaukee police arrested him and referred misdemeanor battery with domestic abuse charges to the district attorney's office. The charges were not prosecuted. In September 2020, Milwaukee police arrested him again and referred felony charges of first-degree recklessly endangering safety to the DA's office. Those charges were also not prosecuted. In November 2021, the same felony charge was referred again from a second arrest, also not prosecuted. When Griffin arrived at the Bartlett Avenue address before 3 in the morning on July 3, 2025, and shot the landlord and killed Victoria Truss and then fired 4 rounds at an approaching police officer, there was no active criminal case, no outstanding warrant, and no legal instrument that had removed him from community. The 7-hour manhunt. The Shorewood officer who was shot in his vest was treated at the hospital and released the same day. Shorewood Police Chief Heather Worth described the ballistic vest in the most direct terms available. We were incredibly fortunate that the vest did its job. The officer exited his squad car when backup arrived, checked his vest, kept communicating, and was evacuated to the hospital. He was home the same day. His name has not been publicly released, which is standard in officer-involved shooting investigations pending review. His identity will eventually become part of the official record when the case fully concludes. Griffin, meanwhile, was in the black Mercedes sedan that the landlord had seen him leave in. He drove away from Bartlett Avenue sometime before or during the response, and for the next 6+ hours, he was somewhere in the Milwaukee area while law enforcement organized a search involving more than 10 agencies, including the FBI. Just before 9:30 in the morning, a Flock Safety automated license plate reader camera caught Griffin's black Mercedes. A Glendale Police Department squad was right behind him. A chase began in Glendale and continued south on Port Washington Road at 80 miles per hour. Multiple squads joined. The chase entered Milwaukee city limits. Speed reached 100 miles per hour. Officers attempted stop sticks at multiple points. The attempt missed. An officer took out a street light at the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and Center Street during a spin-out attempt. The chase continued through the Harambee neighborhood and into the Broads Hill neighborhood, where Griffin's car finally spun out. When the Mercedes stopped moving, Griffin was still shooting. He fired at officers from inside the vehicle. A Glendale officer fired back through his own squad windshield, jumped out of the still-moving vehicle, and used the car as cover. What followed was described by law enforcement after reviewing the video as approximately a 1-minute gun battle between Griffin, the Glendale officer, a Milwaukee police officer, and an FBI agent. 9 spent casings were recovered from Griffin's vehicle. 35 spent casings were recovered from the weapons of the 3 law enforcement officers. An autopsy confirmed Griffin was shot 11 times. The medical examiner confirmed the cause of death was not self-inflicted. Methamphetamine was found in his system. The Milwaukee County District Attorney subsequently reviewed the use of force by all 3 officers and the FBI agent and ruled it legally justified. What the camera recorded. The full body camera and dashboard camera footage from the initial Shorewood response and from the subsequent chase and final confrontation in Milwaukee were released publicly by Shorewood police in January 2026, approximately 6 months after the event. The footage had been withheld during the active review process, as is standard when law enforcement use of force is being formally investigated. When it was released, it confirmed what the audio had already documented and what Chief Worth had described at her July 3rd press conference. An officer drove toward a shooting scene, was fired upon before he reached it, took a round in his vest and glass in his face, kept driving, kept radioing, kept giving information, and stayed on the job until backup arrived and took over. He was at the hospital by the time the manhunt for Griffin began. He was home by the time the chase ended. He is not publicly named. His vest did its job. Michael Griffin killed Victoria Truss, shot her landlord multiple times, shot a responding officer in his vest, fired at a squad car as it arrived, fled, and stayed free for more than 6 hours before a flock camera spotted his car. His prior arrests, 3 of them, 2 involving felony charges of recklessly endangering safety, were never prosecuted by the Milwaukee County DA's office. Victoria Truss called police 7 weeks before her death to report that he had a gun and would not leave. What should have happened differently, and at what point? Tell me in the comments. 2:51 a.m. A landlord bleeding from his chest and hand calls 911. An officer drives toward the address. 4 rounds hit the squad car. 1 hits the vest. Shots fired. Shots fired. I'm hit. He keeps going. He's still shooting. He's at Wood, at that original address. Victoria Truss was already dead. Griffin fled in a black Mercedes. 3 prior arrests. 0 prosecutions. A flock camera found him 6 hours later. 100 miles per hour through Milwaukee. A 1-minute gun battle. 35 law enforcement casings recovered. 11 hits on Griffin confirmed by autopsy. The officer who was shot in the vest was home the same day. His vest did its job. Victoria Truss was 34 years old. Her mother said, "Just be here for us, please." She was shot. She returned fire. She flagged down drivers. Blount County, Tennessee, February 8, 2024. Thursday evening, February 8, 2024. Just after 8 p.m. The 4900 block of Sevierville Road in Maryville, Tennessee, a 2-lane stretch of U.S. Route 411 in Blount County, about 16 miles south of Knoxville, a few miles from the edge of the Great Smoky Mountains. Deputy Shelby Eggers, 22 years old, pulls over a vehicle for erratic driving, specifically swerving into oncoming traffic in the lane. She approaches the vehicle. The driver is Kenneth Wayne DeHart Jr., 42 years old. A conversation begins. Eggers says she smells marijuana. She asks DeHart to step out of the vehicle. He refuses. He tells her, "I'm refusing the search. I do not smoke marijuana." He stays in the car. Eggers tells him that if he does not step out, she will pull him out and he will go to jail. He stays in the car. She radios for backup. Deputy Greg McCohen, 43 years old, arrives at the scene. He approaches from the driver's side. The 2 deputies now have DeHart surrounded at a traffic stop on a 2-lane road at 8 in the evening. And what happens next, what the body camera and dashboard camera footage show as it unfolds, happens in less than 2 minutes. Eggers opens the car door and attempts to pull DeHart out. McCohen deploys his taser. DeHart remains in the seat. McCohen deploys the taser a second time. DeHart remains in the seat. And then DeHart pulls a handgun from inside the vehicle and fires. He shoots both deputies and drives away. McCohen is struck and mortally wounded. Eggers is shot in the leg. In the moments after the car drives away and both deputies are down, Shelby Eggers, shot in the leg on a 2-lane road in Blount County, does 2 things that the footage documents. She returns fire at the departing vehicle, and she flags down passing civilian drivers for help. Both officers are transported to the hospital. McCohen dies. Eggers survives. Greg McCohen. Greg McCohen was 43 years old. He had joined the Blount County Sheriff's Office in 2020, which means he had made a career change from manufacturing, leaving a life outside law enforcement to put on a badge for the last 4 years of his life. In April 2021, less than a year into his time at the department, he was awarded a life-saving commendation for pulling a man from a burning vehicle. He enjoyed restoring old cars and riding motorcycles. He was engaged to be married. He had 2 children and a granddaughter. Sheriff James Lee Bering, who had known McCohen and worked alongside him, spoke at a press conference with tears that he did not attempt to hide. He said, "I'm so sorry that we've lost a young man. I talked to his family earlier. I apologize for not protecting him." He called McCohen a hero both in life and in his death. The department put his cruiser on the lawn of the Blount County Justice Center. The community covered it in flowers, notes, crosses, and wreaths. Blount County Schools and Alcoa City Schools closed early on the day of the funeral procession to allow for the traffic. Flags flew at half-staff at the Tennessee state capitol. A bridge in Blount County was named in his honor. His son and daughter founded the Deputy G. McCohen A Step Further Foundation to support other law enforcement families of injured or fallen officers. The 5-day manhunt. Kenneth DeHart fled the scene in his vehicle and was not immediately located. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation placed him on their most wanted list. A blue alert, the statewide emergency notification system for officers killed or injured in the line of duty, was issued the following day. More than 150 law enforcement personnel from across the region participated in the search, which focused on dense wooded areas in the Wildwood section of Blount County where DeHart were believed to have fled on foot. The Blount County Sheriff's Office increased its reward for information leading to DeHart's arrest to $100,000. Sheriff Bering, speaking publicly about what he wanted for the man who shot his deputy and killed his colleague, did not attempt diplomatic language. "I want the death penalty." In the days after the shooting, law enforcement arrested 2 people connected to DeHart. His brother, Marcus DeHart, 41 years old, was arrested on a charge of accessory after the fact to homicide and held on a $1 million bond, accused of providing assistance to his brother after the shooting. His girlfriend, Carrie Matthews, 32 years old, was arrested in Sevier County after investigators determined she had received a phone call from Kenneth DeHart while being interviewed by police at her residence. During that call, Matthews allegedly said the words, "They're here warning DeHart that law enforcement was present." She was held without bond. Kenneth Wayne DeHart Jr. was arrested on the morning of February 13th, 2024, 5 days after the shooting at a home on Linden Avenue in Knoxville. His booking photograph from the Blount County Sheriff's Office showed an injury under one eye that TBI Director David Roche said was believed to have been caused by police K-9 during the arrest. Roche confirmed there was no evidence of inappropriate use of force by officers during the apprehension. The charges and what comes next. Kenneth Wayne DeHart Jr. was formally charged with first-degree murder in the death of Deputy Greg McCohen, attempted first-degree murder in the shooting of Deputy Shelby Eggers, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. He was a convicted felon at the time of the traffic stop, which means possession of the weapon he used to shoot 2 deputies was itself a felony charge laid beneath the murder and attempted murder counts. He had a criminal history that predated the Sevierville road stop, and the weapon he drew in that car was a weapon he was not legally permitted to have. A grand jury in Blount County returned an indictment on more than 20 charges related to the incident, encompassing the first-degree murder count, the attempted murder count, and additional charges arising from the full factual record of that evening. In September 2024, the prosecution filed court documents seeking the death penalty and life without the possibility of parole. Blount County District Attorney General Ryan Desmond confirmed the capital prosecution. DeHart's trial was scheduled to begin in April 2026. As of the date this episode was recorded, the trial had not yet commenced. Deputy Shelby Eggers survived. She was 22 years old on the night she pulled over a swerving car on a 2-lane road in Blount County. She was 22 years old when she was shot in the leg on that road, returned fire at the departing vehicle, and flagged down civilian drivers for help. She was released from the hospital. The sheriff's office confirmed she was recovering at home. Shelby Eggers made a decision she made in the seconds after she was shot on a dark road in February, with a round in her leg and her partner down, and a car driving away from her. She is the reason the dashboard camera footage has audio from both sides of the scene. She is the reason the subsequent investigation, the arrest, the indictment, and the capital prosecution exist. She cheated death on Sevierville Road on a Thursday evening. Greg McCohen did not. The bridge named for him is in Blount County, Tennessee, not far from where they were both shot. A 22-year-old deputy initiated a traffic stop for swerving. Her partner answered a backup call and was killed. She was shot in the leg and returned fire and flagged down civilian drivers. The shooter was a felon in possession of the gun he used. He led a 5-day manhunt involving more than 150 officers. His family members helped him hide. He is now facing capital punishment at trial. His prior criminal history allowed him to be on that road at 8 in the evening with an illegal firearm. At what point in that chain of events do you think the system had the best opportunity to produce a different outcome? Tell me in the comments. 8 in the evening, a swerving car, a smell of marijuana, a refusal to exit, a backup call, a taser deployed twice with no effect, a gun drawn from inside the vehicle, 2 deputies shot, 1 drove away. Shelby Eggers was 22 years old. She was shot in the leg. She returned fire. She flagged down civilian drivers for help on a 2-lane road. Her partner died. His cruiser sat on the Justice Center lawn covered in flowers. A bridge was named for him. His daughter and son started a foundation. Kenneth DeHart was captured 5 days later. His brother helped him hide. His girlfriend warned him. He is facing the death penalty. His trial is scheduled for April 2026. Shelby Eggers is recovered. She is alive because of what she did in the seconds after she was shot. That is everything. The camera that was in the right place. Deltona, Florida, March 2nd, 2026. Monday evening, March 2nd, 2026. A residential street called Candler Drive in Deltona, Florida, a large unincorporated community in Volusia County, about 30 miles northeast of Orlando. Volusia County Sheriff's Deputy Jose Rivera, who joined the Volusia County Sheriff's Office in 2023, and his trainee, Deputy Jacob Gomez Lopez. are on patrol. Gomez Lopez graduated from the Law Enforcement Academy on January 20th, 2026. Tonight is his 8th day on the street. Earlier in the day, starting at approximately 5 in the morning, a woman had reported to law enforcement that her friend's son was acting erratically and had struck and damaged the hood of her vehicle. Rivera and Gomez Lopez had interviewed the family members of the suspect at their home during the day. Those family members had told the deputies two things. The suspect could be violent, and they knew where he was staying. The deputies went to find him. The address was 2684 Candler Drive. The suspect was Luis Diaz Polanco. What the family had not told them, because they may not have known, is what Polanco had been doing in the days before the deputies arrived. Sheriff Mike Chitwood, speaking at a press conference on the evening of March 2nd, revealed a detail that had emerged from the investigation into Polanco's devices after his arrest. In the days before the shooting, Polanco had used a Spanish-language artificial intelligence chatbot to ask about whether he could kill someone who came onto his property under Florida law. The AI responded with an explanation of the Stand Your Ground statute. Polanco had done legal research about killing a person who came to his door, and then he had waited to see who would come. 8 days on the street. Deputy Jacob Gomez Lopez was 8 days into his career as a sworn law enforcement officer when he drove to Candler Drive that Monday evening. 8 days. He had graduated the academy on January 20th. He was in field training, which means he was paired with Rivera specifically to be supervised and taught the practical application of what the academy had prepared him for in theory. He had specifically requested an assignment in Deltona. He and Rivera had been conducting investigations together for the beginning of what the field training program requires, the supervised application of skills before a trainee is permitted to work independently. On the 8th day of that program, on a residential street in Deltona, Florida, the field training became a gunfight at a distance of less than 6 feet. The deputies knocked on the door at 2684 Candler Drive. Polanco answered holding a box. The deputies instructed him to put the box down and step outside. He slammed the door and retreated inside the house. Rivera directed Gomez Lopez to reposition at the rear of the house in case Polanco tried to exit from back. Polanco did not exit from the back. He returned to the front door. He opened the box. He retrieved a tan-colored Glock handgun from inside the box. He stepped toward the front door and engaged Deputy Rivera in what Sheriff Chitwood described at the press conference as a gunfight. The body cam that changed everything. What happened next is documented by the body camera footage released by the Volusia County Sheriff's Office and described in exhaustive, specific detail by Sheriff Chitwood at the March 2nd press conference. The shooting occurred from a distance of less than 6 feet. Polanco fired his weapon at Rivera. One round struck Rivera's body camera dead center. The body camera was mounted in the center of Rivera's chest, a positioning that the Volusia County Sheriff's Office had adopted 6 months earlier, when they switched to a newer model of camera. The previous model had been worn on the shoulder. The new model rode in the center of the chest. Sheriff Chitwood said, in a direct statement at the press conference, as far as seeing a body camera take a shot, it is the first time. The round that struck the body cam dead center is believed to have ricocheted through Rivera's shoulder. A second shot struck him in the thigh. He was hit twice. He was not hit in the chest. Chitwood said, Deputy Rivera, whose birthday is in about 12 days, thank God for his body camera. He added, if you're in a gun battle at that distance, there is no room except for divine intervention. He described the outcome as nothing short of divine intervention. He said, if you don't believe in God, things like this make you believe in God. Polanco fired a total of 12 rounds. Rivera, retreating and returning fire simultaneously, fired 6. Investigators found 12 spent casing from Polanco's weapon and 6 from Rivera's, tracing from the front door across the yard. Polanco followed Rivera down the driveway while continuing to fire. After the shooting, Polanco attempted to reach his vehicle. Additional deputies who had responded to the call intercepted him before he could. He was taken into custody. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement opened an investigation into Rivera's exchange of fire as a standard procedure. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office opened a separate investigation into the charges against Polanco. Rivera was evacuated to the hospital. Chitwood visited him on Tuesday and later told reporters that Rivera was eating chicken and spending time with his family watching SpongeBob when he arrived. He was expected to be discharged on Tuesday. Gomez Lopez 8 days on the street, was uninjured. Both were described by Sheriff Chitwood as absolute heroes. The charges in the court. Luis Diaz Polanco was charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer. He was booked into the Volusia County Branch Jail. At a court appearance on Tuesday morning, March 3rd, a judge denied bond. That hearing also produced a detail from the arrest affidavit that Polanco's defense attorney tried to have sealed from public records. Polanco's admission to investigators that he had intentionally fired at the deputies. He also reportedly acknowledged that he thought their vests should protect them. The judge, Karen Foxman, ruled in her bond denial decision that the record of Polanco's diagnosed schizophrenia and his acknowledged decision to stop taking his medication were factors that significantly informed the court's assessment of his danger to the community. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office confirmed that the body camera, now evidence, had been sent for forensic examination. The camera that was on Rivera's chest when the round struck it, the camera that deflected the round away from the center of his chest, was documented, photographed, and logged as physical evidence of the tampering charge against Polanco and as the most significant piece of hardware in the case, where the specific model and placement of that hardware is the difference between a deputy going home to watch cartoons with his family and something this channel would have had to cover in an entirely different way. The transition to a chest-mounted camera, completed 6 months before March 2nd, 2026, was not made in anticipation of a shooting. It was made for standard operational and footage quality reasons that had nothing to do with the events on Candler Drive. The previous shoulder model was replaced with a center chest model as a matter of equipment upgrade and departmental standardization. The decision was administrative. The consequence of that administrative decision, on the evening of March 2nd, 2026, was that when a Glock fired from 6 feet away sent a round toward the center of Deputy Jose Rivera's chest, there was something in the way. A deputy and an 8-day rookie knocked on a door about a minor property damage complaint. The person inside had researched Florida's stand your ground law using an AI chatbot in the days before the shooting. He admitted to intentionally firing at them. He said he thought their vests would protect them. The deputy's bodycam intercepted a round fired from 6 feet away and redirected it through his shoulder instead of his chest. The department had switched to a chest-mounted camera 6 months earlier. If they had still been wearing the shoulder model on March 2nd, the round would not have been deflected. How do you think about that fact, the administrative camera upgrade decision that saved a life without anyone knowing it would? Tell me in the comments. 8th day on the street. A property damage complaint. A box. A tan Glock. Less than 6 feet. 12 rounds fired by Polanco. 6 fired by Rivera. Retreating. 1 bullet hit the bodycam dead center on Rivera's chest. The camera was moved to the chest 6 months ago from the shoulder. First time the Volusia County Sheriff had ever seen a bodycam take a hit. The round ricocheted through his shoulder. Second round in the thigh. Rivera was eating chicken and watching SpongeBob with his family the next day. Polanco had researched Stand Your Ground on an AI chatbot before the deputies knocked. He admitted he fired at them intentionally. He said he thought their vests would protect them. A judge denied bond. 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. The camera that saved the deputy's life was moved to his chest by an administrative equipment decision 6 months before he needed it there. What the fractions add up to? 4 cases, 4 different types of survival. 2 officers who had 30 rounds fired at them from close range and were not struck by any of them. An officer who drove toward a shooting scene at 3 in the morning, took a round in his vest, kept driving, kept radioing, and was home the same day. A 22-year-old deputy who was shot in the leg on a dark road and returned fire and flagged down civilian vehicles and stayed on the scene long enough to ensure that the investigation that followed had everything it needed. And a deputy whose brand-new chest-mounted body camera intercepted a round fired from 6 feet away and redirected it through his shoulder instead of through the center of his sternum 2 days before his birthday, on the 8th day of training for the rookie standing 20 feet away at the back of the house. The outcomes in the 4 cases are documented and proceeding. Matthew Fowler, 23 years old, is in the Hillsborough County Court system on 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer and 6 additional charges. Michael Griffin is dead, shot 11 times in the final confrontation in Milwaukee's Broads Hill neighborhood after a 7-hour manhunt and a 100-mile-per-hour chase through 3 municipalities. Kenneth Wayne DeHart Jr. is awaiting a capital murder trial in Blount County, Tennessee, where the prosecution is pursuing both the death penalty and life without the possibility of parole, with a trial date scheduled for April 2026. Luis Diaz Polanco is in the Volusia County Branch Jail without bond, charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer, held pending trial on a case in which the defendant admitted he fired intentionally, and the physical evidence of his admission includes a bodycam that stopped his bullet. What these 4 cases have in common is not the type of officer involved, or the type of suspect, or the location, or the context of the initial contact. What they have in common is a specific margin that separates the episode you just heard from something else entirely. 30 rounds fired into a parking lot and 0 connections. A vest doing the specific job a vest was designed to do at 3 in the morning in the windshield of a squad car by someone firing from a dark street. A leg wound on a 2-lane road in Tennessee, and a 22-year-old who returned fire anyway. A body cam mounted 6 inches lower on a uniform than the previous model, in the exact location that a round was traveling toward from 6 feet away. These are not large margins. They are the fraction that today's episode is named for. There is a version of how law enforcement gets discussed that focuses exclusively on the failures, the moments where the system or the individual broke down. There is another version that exists only as tribute and does not engage with the real complexity of what these jobs involve. Today's episode is neither of those. It is a documentation of 4 specific moments where specific officers made specific decisions under fire and survived specific outcomes by specific margins, and where those margins are documented on camera, in the way that body cameras and dashboard cameras document everything, without judgment or editorial, in real time. The footage exists. The charges are filed. The trials are scheduled. The deputies are home. One of them is eating chicken and watching SpongeBob. One of them has a bridge named for her partner. One of them, unnamed and uninjured, has a vest that stopped a bullet on a residential street at 3 in the morning and was home by the end of that same day. Tell me in the comments which of these 4 cases you think represents the narrowest margin. Not the most dramatic, not the most famous. The one where, by your calculation, the difference between what happened and what could have happened was the thinnest. That gap is what every officer on every shift is living inside of, and most of the time the cameras capture something ordinary. Today's 4 episodes capture the days it was not ordinary. New episode coming. See you in the next one.